There's just this being. The mind can be seeking, seeking, seeking. There's just this being. The mind can think, oh yeah, I got that. But behind that, there's just being. It's just there always. It's actually everything. But when you take yourself to be this flesh and bone thing, you think you're the experiencer, you're the thinker, you're the doer. And then it distorts reality into a me and a world. There's not a me and a world. There's just being, and then everything arising within being. It's very simple. The words are just an expression of something that's beyond words, and the words themselves, even if you don't understand what they mean, it doesn't matter. That there's a power, there's a potency, there's something there, there's a force that's there that will pull you into it. When the words are coming from truth, it doesn't matter what the words are. When the words are coming from falsehood, it doesn't matter what the words are. In the reverse way. It doesn't matter how good the false prophet speaks, those words will never take you home. And it doesn't matter how badly the knower of truth speaks, his or her words will draw you in, because there's a power beyond the words, which is in stillness, in silence. That stillness, that silence is in your heart. It's your essential nature. It's always pristine and pure. Doesn't matter what's happening. When we're attached to the egoic mind, we just are in our own echo chamber of thoughts. We're just listening to this voice go around that distorts everything. When we're quiet, when we're still, that distorting voice subsides, even if temporarily, and something else momentarily is allowed to emerge. That stillness, that silence, that silence. That silence, that's science. Science actually means knowledge, knowingness. It's the root meaning of the word science in Latin, even though I just misspoke. I meant to say silence. I'm trying to turn that one around. That silence, that is, in quotes, known, but it's never really known. And I told a very brief story about a seeker when he was a young man, a young boy. He was trying very hard to understand things, and he was quite intellectually quick in his mind, and he was suffering, and he wanted to know and wanted to understand the mysteries of the universe, of spirituality, to attain enlightenment. And then one day grace came along and swept all that aside, and instead of knowing stuff, he knew less, and he became filled with love and joy and spirit. Or he came into contact with spirit. He started communing, coming together with spirit, and it was a different movement. It was a spiritual movement, not a movement of the mind. It was a movement, we could say, of the heart. It was a stirring in the heart that was growing and growing. And that joy and peace envelops this seeker. And I'm talking of myself. And this seeker became less clever, less knowledgeable, but happy and peaceful. And the reason I share that is just to give you some kind of insight into what this is about. It's like a wiping away. It's like it's a wiping away with love. You know, it's not okay, I'm going to figure it all out. So there you go.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I had this question, like, but you've just answered it by using the word grace. It's like, when you guys say, there's the remain in what you know, or it's just be. There is only just being. There is nothing else. How can there be anything else? If you look at it logically, there can't be anything else but what is happening now. So, but I just realised the question is a seeking question. Sorry?
There could be something else. The point is that logically this doesn't make sense. You can come up with logic to say, yes, there can't be anything else apart from being, but there could be. The universe is mysterious and weird.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just saying that philosophically, this doesn't work. Philosophically, you can't come to this philosophically. There are lots of, if you try and make an argument for this on a rational basis, that's fine. But if you want to poke holes in the argument, you'll be able to find lots of holes in it as well.
Sure.
This is where faith comes in, because when the teachings say, "Oh, there's no other way it can be," what they're trying to do, they're trying to convince you to be still. All the teachings are trying to convince you to become pure, joyous, happy, loving, and still. And all of that is summed up by this word, mauna, which means silence in Sanskrit, which means be still. The silence. It's not just not saying anything. It's when the activity of egotism is just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled and lessened and lessened and lessened, and there's just this being and presence. And in that being and presence, there's still a you, there's still a Rich, and there's still a Tom, but that is not what we are. That is just an appearance. And what you are and what I am, underneath it all, behind the scenes, is one. Like a dream. A dream, it appears to be many, but there's only one. And actually, that's just the teaching. That's just the concept itself. Beyond that, it's just, even that teaching is just there to allow you to let go.
Yeah. Yes. So what? It's like when they say, like, abide in that, okay, or just remain in the knowing. But the I cannot remain. I cannot remain in my knowing. No. I can't go to my knowing. So there's no like, right, meditate now. Right, let's get into my knowing. Then no. So. But the next question to be that would be a how question, which again is a seeking question. How? Well, I could go into my body. Da, 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 da. There is every question. Just it's a seek. I spot it as a seeking question. There is no. There is the how is as soon as I say how, I'm in banging trouble.
Yeah, you're following the path of inquiry, Rich. You're seeing the movement of the mind. You're seeing the thoughts, or what I just called the movement of the mind, and you're seeing how that is seeking. You're having insight into that. So that's the way of inquiry. We're looking, we're inquiring. Another word for inquiry is investigation. You're like a detective investigating. You're looking at the mind, you're observing it, you're understanding the process. You're seeing, oh yeah, when I'm asking how, when I'm asking why, it's the ego. It's the seeking mind that's seeking. That's wonderful. However, when the vasanas are strong, when the vasanas are the habitual tendencies, right? Yeah. When the habitual tendencies are strong, inquiry is not enough. You might have all the insight in the world. You might understand the machinations of the mind, the movements of the mind, how the ego is working, but the ego is still doing its thing. Yeah. So there we've got a different issue. Yeah. The insight's there to a greater or lesser extent, but it's there. But it doesn't. The insight alone is not stopping the ego. This is what it's like for most of us, because for most of us, the vasanas are strong. The vasanas are strong with you. It's that kind of thing. Yeah, the vasanas are strong. These
That
vasanas, these habitual tendencies. So
habit patterns of the mind.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Sometimes they're called samskaras. Samskaras, vasanas, you can think of them as being the same thing. Technically, there are a few differences, but from the point of view of what we're doing, they're the same thing. They're these habitual tendencies of the mind, these pathways. You know, if you've got like a hill or a mountain, and you pour a load of water at the top of the hill, the water will choose the path of least resistance. And then over time, that will become a little stream and then a river. And so a groove is being carved out in that hillside.
Mm.
And over time, the water tends to just go down that groove. And that's the habitual tendency. That's like our mind. We've got these grooves, these patterns that our
Yeah.
mind like to go.
Neuro pathways, create new neuro pathways, strong neuro pathways, and that. Is that what
Exactly,
you're on about? Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So these vasanas need to be removed.
Yeah. Well, you've got those, and like you've got desires, aren't you? Desires or fears.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'd call them vasanas.
Right.
Those desires, those fears, they're habitual desires, they're habitual fears.
Yeah.
You know, we've been scarred. We've been scarred
Scarred.
by
Yeah.
good things, and we've been scarred by bad things. You know, say something really wonderful happened to you when you were a kid, and then you fall in love with that thing. You see, and now that binds you because now you desire it. Say something really bad happened to you when you were a kid, and you're afraid of that, and then you become fearful and anxious and worried, and that scars you. You're bound to that. So we're
Yeah.
scarred by the good things and we're scarred by the bad things. And we go towards the good things, we call that addiction. And we become fearful of the negative things. We call that anxiety, neurosis. There's a whole spectrum of things there. Trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're working through all these. Oh, we like to do between vasanas and sanskaras.